Yeah, absolutely. This is so that obviously the metta bhavana sort of invites it much more, doesn't it? Because you bring people to mind, and you do want to go with live situations. You don't just want to sort of trot through the practice with a sort of load of cardboard characters, sort of being good and being nice. That's sort of a bit of a waste of time, really. So you do want it to be live, but of course, when it's live, stimulating. Yeah, because that's when you get the thoughts coming in, because these are live situations, people who we've all, of course, got things going on with. A couple of things. So it's one of the reasons why I've sort of really been stressing the importance of really using the best of what we can cultivate with the breathing, with the mindfulness of breathing, to establish that kind of calm, that poise, that steadiness, the anchor you need in which to then go with feelings and allow them to allow yourself to feel them fully, because that's what feelings want. And staying particularly with this really feeling the breath in the body, and staying with your immediate sense experience. That's why I was sort of talking about growing a sense of appreciation out of your direct experience, because all these things, the breath and your direct sense experience, the sense of calm, the sense of weight in your arms, the quiet, all these things will help keep you grounded and anchored when you get stimulated and when your mind goes off to, why did they say that? Because, and you get into the scenarios which take you out of meditation. It's also really important to remember that the practice is an imaginative practice, and when we imagine with the body, probably a working distinction you might have between fantasy, which is not what we're looking for in this situation, and imagination is fantasy. You leave the body, you go off into your head and you spin off into scenarios. Imagination includes the body very, very much. And as you go through the practice, you don't leave, it builds. It's not like you start your awareness here, say relaxing your arms, and then you go off, with your friend in a scenario, and then you go off flying around Britain and Africa and the oceans. You don't leave. Metta is a kindly awareness. It's a kindly sensitive awareness, and awareness is not finite. It's not a searchlight that you direct at one thing and then on another. That is something you can do with awareness, but there's a much more that's sort of like it's quite a narrow ninja-like awareness. We're looking for a deeper kind of awareness that is infused with love, and that's the kind of awareness that the Buddha compared it to the sun, which just goes on. It just builds. This is one of the miraculous, strange things about awareness is it's not finite. It just goes on and on. So you can be aware of your arms, and you can be aware that this whole planet is full of life going on right now. And part of the practice is it's not about going off into a fantasy scenario in your own head. It's about waking up to what is already the case. The metta is about waking up to what is already going on. All these people, they're there right now. They're not in your head. They're there. It's about broadening your awareness to what is going on, what is the case right now. But it's not like you leave you. So that's why it's really important that the practice stays anchored in something simple, immediate, tangible as the breathing in the belly, the heaviness of the arms, the quiet in the room. And you include that, And that steadiness helps you helps it stay real and helps it stay focused. Yeah, it helps unhook you from getting into the little eddies of scenario dynamics with people. All that's associative thinking, proliferated thinking. Okay, well, this is a bit more edgy, but this helped me anyway. Well, this is one thing the Buddha said. So, the ordinary human mind, my bog standard day-to-day mind, is generally characterized by what the Buddha called prapancha, yeah, proliferated thought, randomly associated thought, one thought knocking into another thought, spinning off, going around, monkey barring around until you don't know where you are. You're not really thinking about much. Most of it's fairly benign. Most of it's fairly boring, but it's actually very dissatisfying. It dissolves your energy, and what the Buddha says is it's all about you. Yeah, it's all about you. All that prapancha, you can tell it's prapancha. You can tell it's undirected, proliferated thought because it will always come back to you and your scenario. It's very, very. It's self-orientated. I find that sometimes helpful to remember because with a little humour, yeah, with a little positivity, yeah, not to get despondent about it. You sort of go, oh, there I am, pretty much thinking about myself again, even in this banal, slightly random thought I'm having around this strange little thing, and I don't know why I keep on thinking that. Often we have heaps of a few kinds of thoughts, and we sort of have very frequent trips to those heaps, and that's all the stuff that keeps our identity sort of congealed and narrow, and that's what makes our lives quite boring. So of course we want to break out of that, but yeah. So what am I saying? So generally, stay with the direct experience. Yeah, that's why we anchor everything in direct experience and grow from there. And then also try not, and that keeps us out of fantasy. And then also trying to remember or bearing in mind that if you drift off into prapancha, there's no need to beat yourself up. That's just what we do, yeah? It's exactly what the mind does. It's just the mind's natural doing its thing. And then you go, there I am, doing my thing. Don't take it personally. If you can, a little nudge of humour, realising you're caught up in, a big drastic argument with somebody or just completely distracted by, an ice cream or something, and you just go, oh, there I am, the world sort of revolving around my little head, when actually the whole world's going on right now. It's all going on, and that's what we're trying to remember. We're trying to realise that. Yeah.
I guess I was interested, or have been working this week, what you were talking about last week about in the first stage of the Metta Bhagavata, appreciating your ability to appreciate.
Yeah.
And I guess my question, because I've never approached it in that way, I guess my question was, if you're not finding much appreciation, is it then about feeling compassion to your negative experience, or would you always be encouraging, don't let that happen, always be looking for the appreciation?
Yeah. No, it's a very good point. Yeah. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, of course, most of the time there will be. You might have to rummage around a little bit. Most of the time there will be something. Sometimes it's even surprising. Often it can be an absence of something that you can appreciate. It might take a little bit of it might take a moment of imagination just to realise. Cool, I really appreciate that. Like, for instance, a couple of months ago, I was just talking about this earlier, which is what's on my mind. I was talking to retreat. We were on retreat, and the Brexit vote had just happened, and I was talking to a group of very young people, and everyone was feeling rather despondent about that, and I was talking about the precious opportunity of our life, but everyone was feeling rather miserable. I was like, God, how am I going to make this seem like a good thing? And it so happened that it also happened to be the centenary of the Somme, the Battle of the Somme, in which hundreds of thousands of people were killed, and everyone was very affected by that immediately. And suddenly, appreciation was back in the picture, appreciating, trying to get a sense with this opportunity, this life. So that was lucky because of history and. No, that's not quite the right thing to say, is it? That was, you know what I mean. So sometimes it does take a bit of a push to sometimes say, okay, what is, how are things, and a bit of sobering up to actually, thank God for that, so to speak, relief. That said, really important in this practice generally, the principle here is this issue of absence and presence. Really, really important. Big issue. Big issue that goes right up into Buddhist theology and all that. But in the immediacy, really, really important to stay aware, stay sensitive to absence and presence in this practice. Like, for instance, appreciation, which I'm calling metta. Staying sensitive to when it's not there. That's really, really important. And of course, it's not going to be there all the time because we are, we're not enlightened. If it was there, boom, like the sun, then we wouldn't need a big golden Buddha on the shrine. So it's not there a lot of the time, yeah? And really, really important to notice that. Really important to appreciate that that's also natural. That's the way it is. That's the case. No sticks, no feeling bad for that. Just trying to be interested in, and it comes and it goes. Yeah, and as you carry on meditating, and as many of you have been meditating for a long time, you'll know that it comes and goes. Feelings they come and go. Not that metta is just a feeling. So when you're meditating and say you're looking for something like appreciation with your friend and it's not there, know that. What does that feel like? Yeah, absence, the grey sort of white cloudy day feeling, where there's just that it still has a kind of quality to it, just like these kind of white clay days we have in England still have a kind of light to them. They even still have a sort of charm, especially you notice it when you've been away for a long time. You come back to England and you go, oh, lovely cloudy day. lovely cold, clammy, cloudy day. That feeling sometimes when you come back from a more exciting country. So, yeah, even in these moods, you can still find they still have a feeling tone. You can still notice what they're like. Again, like the same thing applies to if you're bringing to mind people. Say you bring to mind a friend or a stranger, and if you can't quite, when we bring them to mind, we're sort of looking to, again, stay with the feeling and feel their presence. Yeah, it's an important part of the Metta-bhavana, sort of trying to almost imaginatively feel their presence. Sometimes that's not there. Again, really important to notice when it's not there. If you can't notice when it's not there, you won't be able to recognise when it is. You won't even be. You sort of stop it even allowing it to be there. You have to recognise absences in order to allow things to emerge. It's a sort of slightly sort of quixotic sort of little thing that goes on, but really, really important to notice the absences as well. say, for example, feeling, bringing to mind a friend and not really feeling much. That's interesting. There is something to that, or not being able to connect with them, feeling their absence. In feeling the absence, often there's a kind of metta. There's a sense of sort of, I miss you. So really, really important to notice the absences, like in absence of appreciation, or our capacity to imagine people, be with people. Yeah, one here. Yeah.
We were discussing in our group. Two of us found difficulty with the fourth stage of bringing to mind a difficult person.
Yeah.
Not because the world isn't full of difficult people, but but somehow they don't feel very difficult
Right.
any longer when
Yeah.
it's sort of just, I mean, just let it go somehow. I find myself casting around and thinking, yeah, well, they're not really difficult. I forgive them, all right, it's,
Yeah.
it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
It just slips away and passes on.
Yeah.
It seems weird to kind of dwell on their difficulty or their awkwardness or their
I see what you mean. Yeah.
irritability.
Yeah.
They're just not irritating when
Yeah.
it seems to me that's contradictory almost to them.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah. Yeah, I see what you mean, and that's good. And what? Just trying to think, like.
Just think of Donald Trump. A Donald Trump, or a politician that you.
Yeah, there is.
Okay, well, good point. Yes. Try not to hold him.
Yeah, no, it is a good point, and it is important, especially as you carry on with the metta bhavana practice. When you first learn it, you're told to sort of, you might have been told, don't pick your arch enemy or someone really difficult, someone too far, because you don't want to overwhelm the practice. Some people stay with that for a long time, far too long. That's literally like for the first, time or the second time. You definitely need to move on quickly and bring in people who are more emotive, family, lovers, colleagues, housemates, friends, so you do need to go where it's necessary. So that's one thing, but the main thing is, this practice is still about us, The metta bhavana practice is you're working on your mind and heart. You're working on your mind and heart so that you can then be a better friend, a better father, a better citizen, a better team member. But in meditation, in this particular context of meditation, you're working on your mind and your heart. So we're not sort of... So we're trying to tune into our sense of aversion, which, insofar as we've got any kind of self-identity, any kind of pride, any kind of conceit, which we probably will at some point, unless we're enlightened again. You're trying to bring in that sense of aversion, which most of the time is in relation to people. Most of the time it's in relation to people, or things people do, or things people have designed, or things people haven't designed. You're trying to bring it, and then you're working with that aversion. So you're not really working with the person. You're working with your irritation or irritability. Something going on that presses your buttons. You have a button somewhere to do with this issue. And that's the interesting bit. That's what you're looking at. That's what you're staying with. Okay, maybe I'll just carry on with this for a little bit. So I'm sort of going to move off, but stay with this fourth stage. Yeah, I'm just trying to think how it. The thing I have in mind is, I'm not exactly sure how this fits, but when the Buddha talked about aversion to people or irritation, aversion can be very, very, it can have a very thin wedge and go right up to full-on hatred where you want to destroy somebody or something or a scenario. It can be aversion to please stop moving, to like I hate these kinds of people, yeah, and it's of the same ilk. The Buddha. One of the ways the Buddha described it was a man grabbing a coal and then hurling it at the object of his irritation or his hatred. It's a fantastic image. I remember learning this the first time I did the Metta Bhavana 15 years ago, and it's still worth reflecting on. Because the main thing you realise is that person holding the coal, you bring the object of your irritation right up close, which is what we do when we hate someone. If you get irritated with someone, they're the closest thing to you. Even if it's Donald Trump, yeah. What you do is you go whoom, and you bring them right into the middle of your life. God, I can't believe he said that. God, how can he be so? I can't believe people think he's worth voting for. And you really bring him really, really close. So that's foolish. And then it hurts. This is the other thing. Aversion, hatred, hurts. This is one of the key things that the Buddha was trying to point out. It's one of the key things that you're trying to notice also in the Metta Bhavana practice. When you try and people particularly or scenarios, it does hurt. And it's from that hurt. It's like a nasty spine. It's like a nasty circle. It's from that hurt that we then sort of gather up our fixed, separate self. A lot of our pride and our particular identity constellates around little big hurts even, that we gather up over the years, over the decades. You get hurt and you scar, and then you get fixed. And then you go, okay, I'm not going to be that. I'm not going to be with these. And then you get small and narrow. And again, the Metta Bhavana is trying to untie those knots. Yeah, it's trying to open up the heart with a deeper courage of metta. Metta is courageous, to overcome those pettiness and heal those hurts. I've been noticing myself doing this practice. I asked everyone to up their game a little bit with the amount you're doing meditation, so I've been doing it as well. And just doing this practice every day, this Metta Bhavana. And I've been really confronted myself with my own sensitivity. Yeah, it's one of the things I've really noticed this time about doing this practice is, gosh, meditation doesn't half it confronts you with how you are. And I was sort of thinking like, this practice seems to be making me more sensitive. It's not the case. It's confronting me with how sensitive I ordinarily am. And it's actually been making me a little bit more irritable. Yeah? Like, I cycled the other day into town, and terrible road rage, terrible irritation. I couldn't get out of it either. I couldn't shake it. I was horribly aware enough to see myself getting reactive, and as I was cycling, and then noticing myself bullying as well. Where you're like, I'm just gonna, if you're not gonna leave me any space, I'm just gonna, because I'm cycling here. So, and finding this quite humiliating. I was like, God. But of course, where it's coming from is more awareness, noticing what probably probably is the case anyway. And then this sense of hurt as well, sense of threat, sense of fear. It's actually quite an assault cycling through central London, and people are slightly on edge, and that makes us sort of bustle and hustle. It's the same on the tube. Suddenly you find yourself slightly pushing, and you go, "Oh God, I'm not the kind of person who." Sometimes I see people. My mum came to London last Thursday and was completely. It was rush hour at King's Cross, and she was just bamboozled, with the pace, and she was just completely flustered. She was very sweet, actually. I really felt for her, and I was quite glad to be there. But it's funny. So I was sort of showing my mum onto the train platform, and then I was taking the train home, and then so I was going slow with my mum, and she was fine, and then I'm like whoosh, off the way home, and then of course passing all these other people, many of whom are just like her, just also out of towners who are not used to the pace. And I was thinking, God, if the rate at which I passed by that person, leaped over that person on the stairs, could have been my mother. So, it does sort of just. That's still in the species of aversion, yeah. It's like there's a threat, there's a pace, and your nerves go. Anxiety comes up, and before you know it, you're slightly doing things which you don't want to be like that. You don't want to be that kind of person. I don't want to be that kind of man. But it's understandable because of the hurt, because of the threat. The other thing, I'll just finish with this, the other thing I've been noticing with this is Metabhavana does make you more sensitive to how all the things people do, yourself, other people, the other drivers, the other cyclists. So you notice people doing things that are hurtful. You notice bad design, and you notice clumsy comments. So then the problem becomes, how do you live in a world where there are such things as ethics? There is such things as behaviour. We can behave better. We can behave more skillfully. We are trying to be more kind. This metabhavana is not confined to the walls of this shrine room. It's about working on your mind, uprooting those reactions of irritation, so that we can be better friends, better parents, better colleagues. Yeah. So we're trying to be better people, which means the criteria for being better, so to speak, is more kind, is more loving, is more sensitive, is more aware of other people, more empathic, more courageous, more imaginative as needs be. So as you become more aware, you start to notice people doing things, you start to notice scenarios that are harsh, clumsy, and then yet you also need to bring love to them. You also need to then bring kindness to them. Yeah. If there were no standards, if there were no possibility of behaving better, of being more kind, of not rushing down the stairs, but being sensitive to somebody who's maybe struggling and is kind of overwhelmed with this city we live in, then there wouldn't be any need for this. But there is a way of being better, and that's what we're sort of ultimately trying to do. So the issue comes that this is where I sort of started from, is how do you then notice or appreciate behaviour, appreciate ethics, appreciate there is a more kindly way to behave in yourself and others, and then not get irate with all these things you're noticing when they fall short of the mark. So I've been thinking about this all week, and it must have something to do with forgiveness. I think what you have to do is you have to appreciate that, and you can't. The other thing is I think that I can't seem to do, and this may be the case, is you can't. If you forgive somebody, if you're giving a person, if you're making forgiveness personal, you sort of can't do that without forgiving the big picture, without forgiving life itself. You have to sort of deepen your perspective with metta, and this is largely what we're doing in the 5th stage of the practice when we broaden our awareness. You have to sort of forgive life itself. It's not particular. It's not particular to people. It's not just them, and it's not just you. You have to get out of the personal, not take it personal, and drop into that larger sense of this is life. Even when they do that, and I'm reacting like this is life, and you have to sort of feel your way down to a sense of forgiving life itself. Life is fast. It is harsh. It is amazing. It's changing all the time. It's fleeting. We're separated from people all the time. It's a struggle to stay in touch. It's a struggle to know what is the right thing to say. That's the way it is, given all the oppressions that are placed on us, the oppressions of time, the oppressions of the passions we're struggling with ourselves. And in order to sort of forgive somebody, you have to bear in mind that larger picture. We're all sort of, to some extent, sooner or later, struggling with some of these big issues, these big tectonic forces that shape our world, that are our world. It reminds me of one of the Buddha's sort of Klaron calls about the nature of metta, which comes in the Dhammapada, is he says, people do not realise we are heading for death. Those who do realise this quickly compose their quarrels. Yeah? That's just like an explicit, what a teaching. And it's those quarrels are, they go from those petty irritations to those stupid people driving too close to the curb, all the way around. Those are those quarrels. And what the Buddha's asking us to bear in mind is the big picture, the big facts, impermanence. Life is impermanence. And in the face of that, and its ultimate sort of manifestation, which is our own death, and the death of people we love, the death of people we care about, even the death of people we don't like, those quarrels pale, yeah? Those quarrels are silly and they're petty. So to sort of, especially in that 5th stage, that's something we're trying to remember. You're trying to realise the way things are. You're trying to realise that all these people, all their lives are going on right now. It's not a fantasy. It's right now. The whole world. Even Donald Trump is there right now, trying to make the best of things in his own, in the way that he obviously thinks is, it seems crazy sometimes, but he's still a guy, he's still a human, and that's all going on right now. We're trying to realise that, and also realise its nature as well. It's characterised by impermanence, flux, and everything that means for us. The hurt of separation, the hurt of trying to be in contact, of feeling isolated, of missing each other. The pleasure of being together and knowing it's not going to last, yeah. Even in there's a poignancy. Feel those hurts. Don't let those hurts constellate into a hard, narrow, fixed, petty little proud ego that wants to cut itself off from everything. Feel that, and with metta, with the power of metta, you can open your heart, open into more the way things are, which is more the nature of something, of forgiveness, of metta, of love. Yeah. So trying to drop through into that.